Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan, I'm your host, and today, guys, we're going to be talking about the big wide world of design build. Design build is one of those construction vehicles, contract vehicles that really isn't that well understood. And especially because a lot of contractors, frankly, don't bid these the right way. They're doing them more as plan spec projects, right? As a fully designed, here's my number for it. And they take change orders literally. Where for most design projects or design build projects, there's a lot of things that are just going to be covered under the scope of the project. You're going to just take care of more items. It's going to be that lump sum, not so much a line itemed out project. And this can drive contractors crazy. Now, done right, the projects are going to move faster. You're going to make more money and you're just going to take care of more things, right? It's just going to be covered within the project. For some owners, they really like this and hey, it's just done. It's taken care of. Here's my lump sum for the project and I know everything is going to be handled. With this, you also have to trust your contractors in doing the right thing and handling the project. But on the other side of it, you then have to understand what goes into it. And that can be complicated for a lot of guys. For some owners, they don't trust anybody. They need everything line itemed out. And they're going to, dot every I, cross every T, and be just mind-numbingly in the details and the minutia of every single line item of the project. For that, they're better off going plan and spec, right? Having everything designed out, having a bid for every single item, and then any change order, right? They'll deal with those changes through the project. So design build is going to be more encompassing, and it's going to take really a more advanced contractor team to complete those projects. Now, there's some things that really are going to be more difficult to go fully design build. Usually it's a split design build project. What I mean by that is the structural for the project, the architecture for the project is going to be effectively plan and spec, right? Those are going to be designed by the architect and the structural engineer hired by the owner, and they'll work through all the program phases of it. They'll work through, what the structure of the building is going to be, and those kind of two big pieces will define the majority of the project, right? For a hospital, for example, it'll be, hey, here's where all the patient rooms are going to be, the exam rooms, the nurses station. All of that will be designed out by the architect. And then the structural engineer, of course, is going to do their thing to make sure columns are where they need to be. Floor loading is going to be the way it is. Floor to floor heights are going to be the way it is. And those are going to be, again, more contracted directly to the owner. Then for MEP design, and just to back up, so with the structural piece, a lot of that is because like your steel fabricators, your steel erection teams, they don't have like structural engineers in-house. Most structural engineering firms kind of stand alone, and it's just a better contract vehicle to do that because a lot of really there's no kind of in-house structural engineering for a lot of the erectors or contractors versus when we get into the MEP side of the house where, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors do have in-house engineering or team with an engineer to help them through their projects. So design build on that becomes a lot more feasible where they can figure out their design criteria. They can work through procurement again faster because they have those in-house specialists to help them and engineers to help them through the project. And then for architecture, again, there's basically too many spec sections for them to push that in a design build way, right? Some things could go out like framing. Doors are going to be procured separately from the framing piece of it typically, or sometimes the owner might do it, or a lot of it's in that wall and ceiling package. And then you've got other items like interiors, furniture, carpet, flooring, paint. There's just a lot of spec sections that fall under architecture. So usually that's got to get either somewhat bid out or a general contractor just, takes responsibility for all of those and contracting it out. So with MEP is really like the design build bulk of projects, right? Where a general contractor bids out the work for the architecture structure. and then to the MEP contractors, right? So they end up bidding out the entire project, but then it becomes design build for the MEP side of the house. And what this amounts to is now, again, projects can move faster, procurement can move up, where like gear can get basically sized for the project very early. It can get procured early in the process, once kind of loads are established for everybody. This allows the project to kind of move faster, right? Where all the electrical gear gets procured on its big lead times. So you might be able to save 8, 10, 12 weeks in that process by gear getting sized and maybe oversized a little bit up front. But because of the time lag to get that gear, where it's maybe a 40-week lead time and you save 12, that really now just made the schedule, right? You save 3 months in the project on procurement. And that could be a huge kind of make or break for opening that project on time, on schedule, so that the building can operate and start making money, right? Whatever it is, even if it's a school, right? It can start putting kids through class, and paying for itself, right? Versus having to, maybe now you're renting facilities or now you're shuffling kids around. So you want to make sure that you're able to open those projects on time and really move faster through everything. So with MEP and this design build piece of it, really you're going to need a talented engineer to help do upfront design, especially like on the electrical side, where you're going to have gear sized, all the big items done. You're going to have your general lighting layouts completed, and then you'll have maybe some preliminary or some square foot numbers that you put in for receptacle, wire, pipe, those types of items to get a full budget that you're going to then put to the general contractors, probably with some additional buffer than you're maybe used to in the project. And with this uncertainty, this is where kind of that talented engineer comes into place in being able to, again, pick out the big things. And then as you move through the design of the project, flesh out all the details. So you're still going to get a full set of drawings at the end of it. You're just putting a number to an unfinished set of design projects sooner, right? You're putting basically a complete number that you're going to have to live with sooner in the project. Now, there's going to be things that usually come up in the project that is outside of like standard scope. Some of this could be adding generators, adding emergency systems, adding, redundancy, right? That wasn't talked about early in the project that the owner now wants to add in. Of course, that's an added scope. Of course, you're going to get, basically change orders for it. And that's how the project goes, right? But general stuff like, hey, I want a receptacle here instead of here, or I want a couple more here, like those kind of, I would say, general or smaller piece items, you're just going to take care of, right? It's going to be built into the project of kind of moving stuff around, dealing with design, dealing with those, smaller changes in the project. Those will just get handled, right? You'll take care of it. If there's any issues, it is going to be on you. Right? So there is a little more risk, but with that can come a greater reward. All of this goes down to having a competent team, being able to deal with the changes, and just having a little more stomach for uncertainty, right? If you're a contractor and you don't like uncertainty, you like, hey, this is what I bid, this is what it is, right? X's and O's, then stay in the plan and spec world, right? That is going to be for you. But if you want a little more upside and you're willing to take on a little more risk, then design build projects are going to be for you, right? You're leading the ship, you're leading the charge, you get to pick suppliers, materials, you're not going to be bound to the spec section, right? Because you're going to write it. So you're going to be bound to whatever you decide you want to do for manufacturer choices, lighting choices, fixture packages, right? It's not bound to the spec. It's you work it through with the owner in design of those choices. So you get to choose what you put in front of them. You get to choose what that looks like. And again, because all these prices were basically pre-negotiated, you don't have to disclose any of those prices, or you shouldn't have to. So again, this creates more reward, more upside for you as a contractor. However, you just got to be able to move through this uncertainty. And again, not a lot of people can handle that side of the business. So have a good engineering partner, have a good estimating team to do these projects. And it is basically a little more advanced type of way to go about doing projects than most people are used to. So design build isn't for the, I would say, faint of heart, but it it is great, and you have a lot more flexibility and freedom to execute projects the way that you want to do them. So if you've been curious about design build, feel free to reach out to me here on the podcast, and be happy to walk through any questions that you might have about design build, how to go about it, or what we can do to partner together on your next project. So with that, guys, that is this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. If you got anything out of this episode or any of our other episodes, please make sure to give us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. Until next time.